Right, thanks for staying with us. In the lead up to the May 29 elections, two religion-based political parties, Al Jama-ah and the African Christian Democratic Party, will today launch their election manifestos. The parties will lobby for support from voters and pledge their plans and priorities should they obtain leadership positions. Both, much like most political parties, are no strangers to controversy. While ACDP will be remembered for its anti-vaccine stance and Al Jama-ah for their condemning of retailer Woolworths for their LGBTI Pride Month advertorial campaign. Let's discuss the role and impact of religion in politics with culture and religious expert Reverend Professor Musa Xulu, who is also the founder of Indosa Yesizwe think tank. A very good morning to you. Thank you so much for your time. A very fine line insofar as religion and politics are concerned. I mean, ACDP is one of the biggest parties, sixth in the order when it comes to support base, which would be speaking volumes on the importance of such a party and the kind of voters who will side with a party like the ACDP. When it comes to the role of religion in politics, what is your take?
Well, thank you very much, and good morning to yourself and your viewers. There's always this mistaken belief from parties like ACDP, Al Jama-ah, and even ethnic parties like the IFP, to think that people, vote as groups, and then of course the ACDP will say, okay, South Africa has 80% of population which are Christians, and therefore they'll vote for us. Al Jama-ah will look at Muslims and so on. When it comes to politics and religion, as well as ethnicity, those just don't mix at all, because the voters are very selfish people. They look at their own needs. They don't look at the needs of political parties, and political parties are actually making the mistakes of thinking that voters are looking at their needs. No, voters are not looking at the needs of political parties. They look at their own households. What do I need for my own household? What do I need for my children? Free education. What do I need for my household? All those, SASSA grants. What do I need for myself? Opportunities to go to school and opportunities to get a new life and so on. So the thinking that religion, especially, ACDP is not the only Christian party. There's also a lot of others formed by pastors at local level who want to become municipal mayors, etc. It's a mistaken belief that people vote as a crowd, vote as without thinking about themselves. When it comes to mixing religion with politics, it has never worked. Where it was tried, it always ended in a disaster.
And what does history tell us when it comes to the role of religion in politics and how that was used in the past to change the narrative and really instill some perceptions and some sort of discipline within the voter base?
Well, it was easily used in the past before the, in the Middle Ages, and even before that, when church, for example, was central to society. But with the Industrial Revolution and the French Revolution that happened, and the democratization of America and the UK, which then spread all over the world, it became impossible to judge people as a group, or to make use of pastors and to make use of bishops, etc., to kowtow people into a way of thinking that was not based on the individuality. South Africa is a democracy today, and the ANC has done very well to ensure over the past 30 years that we become a constitutional democracy. And constitutional democracy gives rights to individuals, well, to groups as well, but you cannot force yourself, like, for example, certain Amakosi in the past would force whole communities to vote according to what that chief wanted. It won't happen now. It won't happen also in the church. It also won't happen in Muslim religion. We've seen revolts in the Western Cape based on the issues of Israel and Palestine, where the Muslim community is simply moving away from this thinking that you should become a group that is commanded by some kind of high person who tells you what to do. So as we get more and more into democracy in South Africa, we can see now that, individuals are becoming liberated at an individual level and not at a group level.
What impact does religion play in politics? I mean, if we recall, as I mentioned in the introduction, that the two big, stances where the ACDP was remembered for its anti-vaccine stance and Al Jama-ah for condemning the big retailer Woolworths for their LGBTI Pride Month advert campaign. What does that talk to when it comes to the kind of impact it has on the voter base and the perceptions that are being shaped there?
Well, the religious people, together with ethnic politicians, always overlook the rights of individuals. The disaster of the ACDP, for example, in 2020, is that they had a conference in Bloemfontein. Just as COVID-19 was coming in and with American right-wingers, religious Christian right-wingers, what happened as a result of them denying the effects of COVID-19? A lot of those people, actually, who did not take COVID vaccine, even in the U.S., we remember that famous pastor who was also passed away, who had been in Bloemfontein, because they had denied a reality of what was happening in the world based on fake beliefs on the power of Christianity. Also, you find that when it comes to religious political parties, they will make sure that, for example, LGBTQ people are denied their rights, and every other queer people are denied the rights, because the thinking is that God created man in this image and woman in this image, and the reality is different from that kind of religious thinking. And therefore, it's not going to happen. I really pity the ACDP, because much as they try to find their space in the South African political space, it's not happening because they're not understanding how society works. Society works differently from church. And even within your own church, you will not find a situation where everyone that then just votes for you because you have said so.
What does this now say about the infringement of the Constitution? Because surely political parties are meant to constantly uphold what the Constitution has to say about freedom of sexuality or in any other fashion, just the role that political parties should play in upholding the Constitution of South Africa?
Well, it's a good question. It's a pity that in South Africa today, it looks like only the ANC is concerned about the Constitution. What's happening is that, political parties, as I said earlier, are looking at their own interests and not at the interests of the people of South Africa. So you'll find that, for example, when Al Jama-ah has issues with LGBTQ people, or ACDP has issues with compliance with the international standards of life, they are actually acting against the Constitution of South Africa, and it becomes problematic because then imagine them being in power and then throwing the Constitution away, and what happens after that? So it's problematic. They expose themselves daily, and I think today they're also still going to expose themselves as being anti-Constitution, same as ethnic political parties.
How much of an impact do you think religion plays in, whether it's a party based on religion or political parties like the ANC using elements of religion to woo voters. I mean, what role does that play? You mentioned earlier about what happened in the U.S. Of course, in 2016, evangelical voters played a big role insofar as supporting Donald Trump because, they were shaped, of course, and supported him ahead of elections, and he won them. And then it speaks about Joe Biden, who was moving towards the Catholic faith as, he tried to also establish himself within the religious sectors.
Well, it's a thinking that if I, as Joe Biden or Donald Trump, or Joe Biden, for example, are seen to be aligned to a church movement, it means that the church movement, all of it, is going to vote for me. It's a misguided kind of thing. The role of religion in politics also comes from being unable to move around and spread the issues of democracy or democratic living to individuals. The Western democracy is based on individual liberties, which means that you can go to church with 5,000 people. It does not mean that all 5,000 people will vote for you. Individual liberties come from the French Revolution, come from the Americas, come from the British kind of way of looking at democracy. It's a misguided kind of thing that's also very not willing to work hard to sell your policies, will lead you to thinking that if I go to a group, the same as traditional leaders. Sometimes they say that in the past, well, even up to 1994 and even in the past few years, a traditional leader would think that he'll call a community meeting and tell people who to vote for. It won't happen in the new South Africa as democracy becomes more and more established. Same as ethnic parties, political parties, like the IFP, etc., etc. They think that groups will come in and listen to the big man, what he's saying, and then they will act accordingly. It's not happening as democracy becomes more and more established around the world.
Very well. Thank you so much for that input. Culture and religious expert, Reverend Professor Musa Xulu, who is also the founder of Indosa Yesizwe think tank. Thank you for your time.